Welcome to the 125th broadcast of the T-ROH Show. It's your host, Keith. Got John with me.
Good morning, folks.
Alrighty. We're going to talk about something a little bit different. We've had a few people come on the scene that are basically doing some extremely nefarious things, and we would like to bring that out and show people what's going on as into dealing with the issue. Let's put it that way. So here we go. There's a group on Facebook that, by the way, the government of the United States of America has nothing to do with. T-ROH has nothing to do with. We've been on their program once, and would like to apologize to some of the people that actually ended up going over there, because when we got on that program, it was a program called Tactical Sovereignty. When we got on that program, we had 2,500 people. We got on there, it jumped to 7,000 and went to 11,000. We do not condone anything that's on that Facebook group. Anything that goes up and down and whatever else, anybody that was looking for a solution to things, we do have to apologize to them, because we did not mean to promote that organization, private group. And it's run by Brian Parker, and he promotes a guy named David Williams, who speaks on the nuclear reality, black hole propaganda, matrix solutions network, and this other kind of crap. And people really need to understand the history of this guy and what's going on. We've known him for, Todd, you knew him for what, 10, 12 years now, or 15 years or so?
Yeah, it's over 10 years.
Okay, I've talked to him on the phone maybe, probably 5, 10 times, maybe, back in the day. And there's this thing he pushes. He's saying that he's a member of the Dominion of Melchizedek. So yeah, Melchizedek's Dominion. Is that what he calls it?
Dominion of Melchizedek.
Okay, so he changed it, because it used to be called. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, you're right. It's Dominion of Melchizedek. Okay. Let's show you a little history of this, because he comes on and he acts like he's the biggest expert in everything as far as law of nations is concerned. He's also talking about he can actually do determinations and tell you what court cases say. And I think he said that the other day, I think it was yesterday, he said, I debunked Keith's assessment under the 1908 Naturalization Act or something like that. And we're saying, what the hell is he talking about? And you're going to see what we're actually talking about here. It's a mess. So there was a little website that has a little history on this. And there's a connected group of con men out in the fleece everyone they can. These con men have a nation, the Dominion of Melchizedek. This is about that nation and these con men. This is David Evan Pedley was a con man. He taught his son Mark to be a con man. Together they wrote a new Bible and created a nation. They also swindled millions of dollars from people. David Pedley was a part of a loose organization of 100 or so con men that came together after the Second World War. During the 1960s, this group specialized in prime bank securities and non-existent class of investments. Chief among these criminals was Dr. Clifford No. That's right, Dr. No, N-O. No was finally busted in 1972. Wall Street Journal reporter Jonathan Whitney described this organization in his book, The Fountain Pen Conspiracy. In that book, Whitney called David Pedley the world's greatest con man. Pedley was indicted on several charges and served a few years in jail. After testifying against an organized crime family associated with some of his schemes, he was taken into the Witness Protection Program in 1975 and given the name David Wellington. He was moved to California, where he teamed up with his son in a real estate-based scam that has also involved a former deputy attorney general. Facing numerous indictments, the Pedleys fled to Mexico. For a time, these two ran a money laundering racket based on an imaginary offshore bank. Mark Pedley was arrested and deported for a visa violation. Soon, David was incarcerated in a Mexican jail, and there he began writing the Melchizedek Bible. And there's some pictures of him. In the 1940s and 50s, David Pedley have taken lessons from Dr. Hosea Merriman, a Christian Science mystic who promoted a system based around Melchizedek, a priest mentioned twice in the Old Testament, several times in Hebrews. Over the centuries, Melchizedek has been cited by Jewish and Christian mystics as some kind of other special being ranging from excellent priest to Jesus in person. Christian Science mysticism is well pretty mystical. Mary Baker Eddy emphasized spiritual truth over material evidence, mind over matter, which can be very useful, a useful tenet to a con man. After all, if reality is what we believe rather than what we can sense, then those imagined prime bank securities are real. At any rate, Pedley rewrote the King James Bible, retranslated it to reflect this concept. The first part of the Genesis does not refer to God creating the world and matter. It's a metaphor for divine revelation or something like that. While David was working in his holy task, Mark was in and out of jail. During that time he was in, Mark also participated in correcting the errors of the King James Bible. By 1986, the father and son writing team had finished the important parts of this work: Genesis, Exodus, Matthew, and Revelation, which was published in as the Melchizedek Bible. But it is also during this time that Mark and David came up with the idea of creating a nation. Of course, they named it after Melchizedek, but at this point, a country was only in name and had no territory. So David died in 1987. By the way, you have to have territory. At least there is an official death certificate for him for that year. When his body was received in California, Mark refused to allow authorities to fingerprint it. Some law enforcement officers believe that David never died and still is out there today conning people. The Dominic of Melchizedek has an ambiguous comment. Certain government regulators doubt that David is really dead. Perhaps they are correct, since good never dies. Mark was finally paroled in 1990. Immediately he changed his name to Tekmek Ben David Netzer Karim. Later this became Branch Vine Dresser, which is, Mark says, the translation. He also operated as David Karim and probably other identities. Very soon after being paroled, he went back to defrauding people and was quickly busted for parole violations. Released in 1993, Mark married Elvira Gamboa, aka Pierre Lacia, and 40 or so other aliases. These two set about finding territory for the Dominion of Melchizedek. Gamboa became its first president. The idea was that the DOM, was an ecclesiastical state, like the Vatican, even though Pedley has been very careful not to push the official Melchizedekan cult. After years, there have been several locations for this imaginary nation. Keraton Atoll, Keratin, I guess that's how you pronounce it, that is underwater half the day. A slice of Antarctica that seemed unclaimed. See end of post for more. An island off South America composed entirely of guano. Is that a metaphor or what? And so on and so forth. Official entities from Fiji, Marshall Islands, and many other places have denied that the Dominion of Melchizedek exists, even though it claims to be situated in their territory. Here's one location, Tayanga or Ratak Atoll in the Marshall Islands group. So why bother with all this? Well, if you have a nation, you can issue currency and license banks and incorporate businesses. You can give legitimacy to organizations and institutions. If all else fails, you can sell passports. In 1998, 3 men who claimed a connection with Melchizedek were caught selling passports in the Philippines for as much as $3,500 each. A trio that cleared more than $1 million in 2 years. One an Australian who was already famous for racehorse fraud escaped. The other 2 went to jail for a while. Mark Pedley made an official Melchizedekian announcement, Melchizedean, that anyone connected with the fraud would be removed from office in that nation. By that time, the Dominion of Melchizedek was fairly well known to law enforcement, who, time and time again, have unequivocal statements that the nation was a phony, and investors should steer away from any scheme connected with it. But during the 1990s, several places were fooled and actually accepted Melchizedekian passports. Mark Pedley traveled to Fiji on one and was able to say that Fiji recognized his nation. By the way, just because you use the passport and they stamp it doesn't mean that you're recognized. just so everybody knows. We know what it takes for full recognition. We haven't asked for it. The government of the United States of America has not asked for it in any way, but from actually any country. But they think that because it's stamped by some country that they're recognized. That's not true. Oh yes, this is all amusing farce, and hipsters can buy a flashy, cool passport to show their friends and be in on the joke. Pedley doesn't mind a straight-faced joke or two. The quote above about his father's death, for instance, and after claiming a wedge of Antarctica, and a list of Melchizedek officials changing to include a M penguin, and bet he thought it was amusing to declare on France that they commenced nuclear testing near Ratak, and then to claim a victory. The test ended 2 days early. It's easy to laugh at other people who being fooled, and they had too much money anyway, and you can't fool an honest man, and so on. But you might reflect that those folks scraping together the money for Melchizedekian passports were looking for a way to travel to places where they could earn a living as chambermaids and janitors. But let's look at the Melchizedekian con man in some of his games. This is Oregonian Gilbert Allen Ziegler, alias Van Arthur Brink, has engaged in a number of curious operations. In 1980s, Allen was involved in various religious organizations, especially the Helping Hands Ministry and Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship that he controlled. In 1994, Gilbert was bankrupt and was found a new start in Hawaii thanks to $25,000 he inveigled from an Oregon woman. He created an investment scheme that brought in cash. He was promising 250% returns, and quickly parlayed this nest egg into enough to buy Nauru banking license for 50 grand. The above and what follows, except or otherwise linked is from One Big Fib, The Incredible Story and Fraudulent First International Bank of Grenada by Owen Platt. Nauru is a place with less than 8,000 residents. The Vatican is the only country on earth with fewer people, but for a little while, it made enough from selling phosphate reserves, guano mostly, so that everyone they thought they were rich. When the phosphate boom ended, Nauru turned to money laundering and scam sheltering. Lots of bad banks were licensed in Nauru, but here's the thing: any official bank license anywhere is a cachet in international finance. The Fidelity International Bank of Nauru was an entry in learning the stage for Ziegler. He assembled a team and learned something about banking. The Nauru Bank was a Class B institution, meaning that a Class A bank was overseeing its operations. So Ziegler had had some care not to do anything too outrageous. Man, this guy writes, it's hard to read his writing. He targeted Christians, meaning nothing flows, claiming a new bank that was out to help rather than exploit. And so long as he was Class B, opportunities to exploit were limited. All this was just experience. Ziegler and his team aimed at creating a Class A bank where he could rip to their heart's content. It says, enter Grenada. Grenada is a small country, best known for being invaded by Ronald Reagan. Sorry about that, internet connection was the issue. By Ronald Reagan, when it threatened to form a commie government. After that, Grenada went whole hog capitalist and began launching a pad for many not so legitimate enterprises. It wasn't that hard for Ziegler to set up a bank there, especially after showing his credentials from the dominion of Melchizedek, who had appointed him Melchizedek's ambassador to the Caribbean. Okay, just so everybody knows, you in order to be appointed Melchizedek's ambassador to the Caribbean has to say, yes, we'll accept you as an ambassador, and then we're going to give you one of our ambassadors. That's an actual ambassador. So when somebody says, they're an ambassador, the other country has to accept. Okay. Ours is accepted by 15 other national governments within the states of the Union and the ANU, more American National Union. So there's a reciprocal agreement there. So that's how that works. So the First International Bank of Grenada was capitalized by the Dominion of Melchizedek. It's not that hard. It's just processing and getting the government of Melchizedek to recognize the worth of whatever you're selling. They give you some paper and you're rocking. And in one case, worthless land in Arizona has valued at millions of dollars by Melchizedek to further one Pedley Gamboa schemes. And in this case, Melchizedek pledged billions of dollars and a carved ruby that was priceless as well as non-existent, just like the billions. Okay, so the First International Bank of Grenada was set up immediately, began an investment program that drew millions of dollars. Of course, this was a Ponzi scheme. And on top of the bank, also had a pyramid scheme where people being scammed were rewarded for bringing in new investors, and a series of motivational programs meant to suck you in another way. Investors who became a little anxious were reminded that the bank was protected by the Investors Deposit Insurance Company and was, like all banks, audited. Few investors realized that the IDIC was also a part of the fraudulent banking network based on Melchizedek, and that auditor was CPA who had lost his license. The FIBG was lucrative enough to spawn other projects and sub-license with 35 other Grenada banks, all of them scams. People did become suspicious that David Marchant was published who published an online newsletter looking at overseas investments, was just about certain that FIBG and its offspring banks were scams. Pressure mounted, and finally Ziegler decamped for Africa, where he had formed some connections. When FIBG failed, satellite banks also went under. Grenada's banking system collapsed and did not recover for years. Some 375 million vanished. When Grenada's Bank of World Peace, founded by an transcendental mediation guru named Tosin Sumeru, man, these guys are unbelievable names, and its prime investment opportunity, quantum gold, disintegrated, Sumeru shrugged and said it was all due to dark forces. Sumeru had written a book on sovereignty consciousness, the notion that you are your own country if you realize it. That sounds much like mind over matter to me. Anyway, in 1999, while authorities in Grenada were still dithering about what to do, Ziegler set up the shop in Uganda, where he got a plum assignment. It says, what follows is from Dancing in the Glory of Monsters, The Collapsing of the Congo and the Great War of Africa by Jason Stearns. Laurent Kabila had recently won control of the Congo, but Rwanda was unhappy with him and sought a replacement. The Vice President Paul Kagame of Rwanda created a Congolese Rally for Democracy in 1998 as a front for an armed intervention in the neighboring country. An idealistic and well-meaning man, Ernest Wamba, was made leader of the RCD. Wamba wanted better living conditions in the Congo by investing in health, education, and infrastructure. Instead, he was a leader of a group controlled by foreign powers that massacred thousands and looted every place they occupied. In desperation, Wamba sought outside investment and discovered Gilbert Ziegler. Sorry, my internet connection's a little messed up. It's interesting to ponder the spectacle of a representative of a fictitious government's non-existent bank negotiating with the leader of a non-existent revolution that is successful would set up a puppet government. Anyway, you know what's going to happen. Ziegler uses his official position to raise money that never goes to the Congolese. Wamba, at first irrelevant, then farcical, loses sight of his goals. Surrounded by child soldiers, he gives speeches about protecting children. In 1999, he is chased out of office. The endless agony of that is the war for Central Africa continues. The point here is that Ziegler sucked profit from all this misery, and that, I think, typifies a con man and woman based in the dominion of Melchizedek. These people are neither nice nor amusing. Ziegler was finally extradited and charged in the U.S. He died in prison awaiting trial in 2005. Meanwhile, Mark Pedley and his wife continue their various thieveries. In 1994, a so-called 60-40 scheme fell apart in England. and then the Inner Sanctum Investment Group, registered in Melchizedek. Behind it, after someone calling himself His Serene Highness Gerald Dennis Sane Wittgenstein Hohenstein was revealed as a fraud. Scams in the West Indies, Hong Kong, and the U.S. came to light, all the connection to the dominion of Melchizedek. Officially, the Dom was very upset and liquidated a bank or two of the many that they licensed and distanced itself from the conman Jeff Reynolds, Melchizedek's Secretary of Commerce, when he was jailed for insurance fraud. Finally, in 2010, Mark Pedley was jailed in Florida for a penny stock fraud. So the way fraud worked was that the whole lot of stock was issued based on worthless mining claims. The shares that were sold for pennies until enough people were on the hook. Then a few hundred shares were bought for $5 each. The jump in stock prices seemed to indicate jump in value, so people bought a lot until Pedley and his accomplices sold their shares at an inflated price. They are set to make hundreds of thousands, then the authorities moved in. As Elvira Gamboa continues the Melchizedek operation, she has been investigated since 1995 and has managed to avoid prosecution. She is a spiritual person. She assures everyone it was her ex-husband, Mark Pedley, who committed these crimes, and she is shocked about hearing about all these deprivations. The state of California continues to pursue an indictment against her, which has caused Gamboa to declare spiritual war on the state. Okay, the organization of con men that Zwitny identified still operates. In reading about the Pedleys and the Melchizedek, and the same names crop up again and again. The con men have longevity. In 2002, a 70-year-old Dr. No was convicted of fraud. 30 years after Zwitny first wrote about him, Mark Pedley is due to be released from Florida, from his Florida cell in June. Okay, besides everything linked here is an enormous amount of information presented as a confusing a way as possible, but if you skim and sift, there's a lot in the link. So here's a map of Antarctica with international claims. The Dominion of Melchizedek claims a territory between 90 and 150 degrees west. On this map that is shown as be claimed by the Republic of New Lemuria. There's the map. We'll give you the link here. So I noticed that New Lemuria speaks of itself in the same exact words as the Dominion of Melchizedek, ecclesiastical sovereignty, and so on. Created in 1994, the Republic also has land in what? Taongi, Keraton Atoll. So the Republic of Lemuria claims all the territory that Melchizedek does. Is it a splinter scam? Virtual war. I would like for this to be a secret artist coup, ousting the criminals, but then I hear that New Lemuria is a base for Prophecy Research Institute that gives psychic investment advice, and I know there's no hope. So where does this, how does this connect? So there's a bunch of comments here. What is the connection, if any, of David Parker William of North Carolina, who claims to be an ambassador at large for the Dom currently? He says that he was given the leadership position when the previous leaders went to jail, and he has since recognized the Dom and canceled all previously issued passports. Or I'm sorry, reorganized. I'm sorry, that was my fault. Is there a connection to Gamboa, because he says none of the previous members are part of Dom anymore? He has mentioned the atoll in the Marshall Islands, but not any other locations. And this is, so far as I can tell, Parker Williams. See, he's changed his name, folks. He used to be David Parker Williams. Now he calls himself David Williams. When you have to change your name around, here you go, right? So he says it's another one of those deluded people who think that some technicality or other keeps them from having to pay taxes. Okay, that guy's out of there. I'm not even going to deal with that. It says, you know, it's amazing how after years of work in the federal courts, the Supreme Court and the International Court at The Hague, someone, a friend, can go searching on miraculous tools called internet and find idiots who profess to know something that literally have no firsthand knowledge of anything. Okay, if you read some of this, he goes down and he starts claiming, I'm a sovereign head of state for a nation operation according with the law of nations and UN resolution 2625. Okay? Well, you can't use UN Resolution 2625 because you're not connected to it or you're even a part of that organization. You can't claim that. That's the way it works. And with the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, you can't claim that if you're not a member of it. All you can do is remind the other party who is a member of it that that they're bound by it. That's it. So when you're seeing International Covenant on Political and Civil Rights with the government of the United States of America, we're not saying we're a party of it to it. We're saying that the opposition that we're dealing with is violating it, and they're a party to it, and they promise to uphold it. That's what we're doing. Wherein the entire world has agreed by these conventions, treaties, and treatises that all peoples have the right of self-determination. Nobody's arguing that. The problem we're having is if you claim to be a part of DOM, the domestic, and it's located somewhere else that apparently is underwater most of the time, why are you in Florida trying to traffic persons into your con for 20 grand? That's the question. You have no business, Mr. Williams, in Florida or North Carolina if you're going to claim to be a part of a nation called DOM that's located somewhere else. Go there. Set up your country, set up your immigration naturalization where people can come in and they can be a part of your country. So why tactical sovereignty is promoting this guy, we have absolutely no idea. It's a complete violation of the law of nations. How much did you get stuck with, Todd?
Oh, it was, I had become friends with David in the past, and he had introduced me to someone that had me in for over 20K, and that wasn't directly related to David. But David and I did do some things after that where there was about $1,500, and I never saw that ever again. So be careful. It's always involving money, and I was very stupid. I never heard a word back. There's nothing going on that I know of with this guy that's worthwhile that's being presented. And that's all I can tell you at this time.
Okay. So he's getting real expensive. This guy, she says, this woman named Lucy, I don't know if it's a name or not, it says, great readings. Yes, I have heard and I personally know William David Parker, aka David Parker Williams. I didn't know his actual name like that. He has bogus companies and has a website where people pay monthly to hear his ludicrous ways of thinking and supposed knowledge. I do remember that website. I remember that website. And all that information was from somebody else, by the way, just to let you guys know. All the money that he makes from this website, he doesn't even pay taxes because he has given up his social security number, and one of the companies that he has, Davishar, formed in New Mexico where he lives in New York. Odd. So that's not odd. That's actually okay if you can do that. There's a bunch of people that have companies in what do you call it? Wyoming and New Mexico, and they can have, as long as they have a registered agent there. Is tax exempt and listed founder is SD Stone, which happens to be David's grandfather that died back in the 1980s. However, this LLC was formed in 2003. Maybe he resurrected from the dead from this and to form this company for his grandson. He now tells people that he's a prime minister of DOM and boasts of getting out of speeding tickets with such with his fake passport that he prints at his home computer. Says, is there any way to turn people like this in for their fraud and thievery? Then he says, this is what he comes up with. No, you're not. You are not amazed. You just say between tokes on your little marijuana stick, while the world around you goes to hell in a handbasket. Well, what's that have to do with what she just said? You allow your banks and politicians to rob you blind. That has nothing to do with what she just said. Why don't you explain Davishar and why S.D. Stone is the listing founder who's dead? He doesn't say that. And you don't even give a crap. Oh, no, you have to write about alleged con men you didn't know from 20 or 30 years ago. And you failed to answer the gentleman's question about me. And according to these questions, somehow he has a lot more information about me than you do. How blatantly arrogant. So what's happened here, folks, is this. T-ROH show has become successful. And rebuilding the country has become a viable idea, starting with the social compact and all that, following the law of nations. So through Brian Parker, David Parker William, or whatever the hell his name is, William David Parker, jumps in and he's trying to get everybody with an enormous amount of money to follow his Dom crap, claiming he's recognized. He claims down in here, and I'll give everybody the link of this, he claims down here that he's gotten letters from a U.S. court calling him an ambassador. Well, that's not recognition. I have letters sent to me saying I'm a Secretary of State from lawyers. That's not recognition. This was back in 2010. That's not recognition. But he's claiming it is. And he's also claiming, oh, because nobody said anything when he noticed them of the existence, that, oh, well, that's by tacit consent. They didn't object, so therefore it's true. That's called ignoring you. Okay, they're ignoring you. Now, what he doesn't understand is that when a U.S. federal court writes you as an ambassador, they're not recognizing you as an ambassador, because you only have 20 people or so in there, and that you've charged an enormous amount of money to be in social compact with you, wherein our social compacts are absolutely free and they're just as valid as any other social compact. And they're recognizing you as a private club under their First and 14th Amendment, because you charge money to be a part of the club. That's all it is, folks. You're being charged. He's claiming to be a country. He's not. There's no such thing. No place that he has his territory. Fiji doesn't recognize that claim. Nobody else recognizes the claim. Claiming to be an ambassador and all this other crap, or a prime minister of something, that the land is somewhere else. Mystical. And how much did they charge you to look at the paperwork? Or try to charge you?
Like I said earlier, he had introduced me to someone. There was nowhere else to go, and I wanted in on a compact. He had introduced me to someone, and just to see the record, the papers that were put together to create this construct, it was $1,500 just to take a look at the record.
That's a private club, folks. Y'all get it? That's a club. That's Sam's Wholesale Club. You have to pay to be a member. That's it. He's using the private membership association deal. But he's painting it like it's a country, and it's not. If it was a country, and he was in the middle of another country trying to recruit people for his country, he would be executed under the law of nations. Clearly violating the law of nations to do that. But they recognize him as a private club. And that's all that's going on. And private clubs can have ambassadors, and private clubs can have head of states and all that kind of stuff. It's just a private club. So he's going around trying to say that, oh, the U.S. courts recognize me. These guys recognize me. When I went down here, they recognize. No, they don't. You're just a private. It's under the rule of private international law at The Hague. That's all it is. It's a private organization. No different than a private court. No different than private anything else. It's not a country. And he's extremely obsessed with U.S. and court cases, and his whole proceeding and his whole interpretation of what happened in 1781 is completely wrong. You see, what's happening is this: he's going around and licking the boots of freaking U.S. because he thinks the U.S. recognized him with a freaking letter. That's what it is. So he's licking their boots so he doesn't get busted. That's what's happening. But he's going around and charging people an enormous amount of money to be a part of a private club. That's no different than what Rothschild does or Rockefeller or anybody else. They all have private clubs, private foundations, the whole thing. Hell, the Clintons even had to pay to play in their private club. So it's nothing new. So if you want to listen to this and then listen to his interpretations of whatever the hell it is, which he always leaves something out. Trust me, he does. I know what it takes to be recognized, and I know the procedure. He has not gone through that procedure. And he's going around waiting for somebody to recognize him and all that, and nobody's going to recognize that. And then he says he's got letters from other countries. Well, number one, you can manufacture those. You can make those up. And number two, those countries, if they send you a letter, doesn't mean recognition. Even if they address you, it doesn't mean they're recognizing you, because there's a certain procedure you have to go through for official recognition, and he has not had that. He just thinks he does. When I listened to his show, I only listened for the first 5-10 minutes. It was the same rhetoric that he used to sell his website. So to the monthly payments on his website. It was almost a script. I remember it completely. I remember exactly, this was just a couple of months ago. He said the exact same thing back 10 years ago. So he hasn't changed his colors. It's kind of like David Wynn Miller. David Wynn Miller had the same seminar since 1995. The same exact seminar. He didn't change anything. And he lived off of it for 20 years. The same rhetoric, same BS. It was very effective, and people started putting colons and hyphens in their name and all this other stuff, and started to go to the syntax crap. And didn't he join with that other guy that was with Wynn Miller?
Russell Gould.
Yeah, joined with them, and they started the Unity States of the World, or some crap.
It was Unity States of Our World.
Our World, okay. So it always cost a lot of money to be a part of that. Now, when you go to the Social Compact, I've never seen anybody sell the Social Compact before or charge to be a part of it. You can go right over to our DOT website and sign on right after you do a resident declaration. Resident declaration is free. The Social Compact is free. We have other charges because of vendor currency, and that's it. We have to pay vendors, but that's it. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't have to be that, you know. It doesn't have to be 20 grand a pop and 30 or 40,000 and all this other jazz. You can't make money building nations. Why? Because real nations have their own money. They don't need it. It's real simple. There's a lot of things missing in this whole scenario, in this Melchizedek thing. It's not even a complete nation. I'm not going to tell him exactly what he needs for that, because I'm not going to help this con man in any way, shape, or form. But he's conning people with old information he got from somebody else. As far as in dealing with the law of nations and looking at, I've seen the same old paperwork he had in 2000. Was it 2009? Same old stuff. He didn't know anything about surveys. He doesn't know anything about chain of title. Doesn't know anything about any of that. Has no clue. But he is as he claims, to be under the law of nations, you are severely violating it by going around and trying to get people to join your scam. You do not have any territory whatsoever. You got nothing. You basically have a private club. That's it. And there's nothing more to it than that. However, he's going around on a private group called Tactical Sovereignty and trying to discredit the government of the United States of America and everything that a lot of people are doing to sell a $20,000 or $6,000 or $12,000, because I think the price changes all the time depending on who he's talking to. We heard yesterday that he tried to charge a woman $1 million to learn how to become a sovereign, and then tries to sell it. Well, it's on paper, it's on this, it's on that. You just don't know. You're stupid. Well, no, we know. We've read the Law of Nations. We know exactly what's going on. So anybody that likes to fall for this, why Tactical Sovereignty is doing this, have no clue and don't care. We're not affiliated with it. We've been on one of their shows and programs. It upped their numbers, and then that was it. Then we were asked the other day to come on again to up the numbers again, and we said no. And then offered to become a radio program for the ANU. Why don't you start promoting your own country here? And that was completely blown off. And started promoting this con man, trying to con people out of a bunch of money. And that's the way it works in that situation. In other words, when he took over so-called Melchizedek, I don't even think he actually has, because he hasn't shown any paperwork that he has. When he took over, it just went along with the same program. Raise money, raise money, raise money. And it sounds real professional. Well, I'm head of state and here, and I'm prime minister of this, and da-da-da-da, and I'm recognized here and recognized. No, you're not recognized at all. If you were recognized, everybody would know. There is no official recognition of the dominion of Melchizedek, period. None. So, anything else you wanted to add there, Todd?
Yeah, sure. Experience has led me to where I am now. It's all good. And like I said earlier, there's nothing going on with what's being presented that I see. Just be careful. I never heard a word back. This is serious business, and
yeah,
it's all good. Experience has led me to where I am now.
He uses a lot of this stuff as U.S. code as authority. Why would you do that? We don't do that. Then he comes on. It's really on this now. This comment: boast of getting out of speeding tickets with fake passports. Then he prints at his home computer. This entire post is an appearance of being written by a retard. And the personally know part combined with misspelled words, such as the website where people, instead of where, okay, now why didn't you just answer the question, dude? Every bogus claim that ever comes to the government of the United States of America, we answer the question. This is what happened. He doesn't say that. He just claims, he just starts picking apart little things because he can't answer the question. Sure sign of a con man. But ludicrous, that's intentional. The word ludicrous, or wow, ludicrous is the name of the rapper. No one except someone trained in certain linguistics like me would cap a word with the middle of it sentence. And okay, yeah, because you're superior. You're a superior guy. You know what's going on. You got it. You made it. When all you got to do is, Mr. Parker, because that's basically your last name. Why don't you just help the states? Instead, you got to fill your pockets with this BS. Just help the states. Start helping your fellow countrymen. And start doing your best to clean it up, but you don't have it in your heart. You don't have it in your heart. You're not honest. That's the way it is. You're not honest. Everything that I have personally done is put out on T-ROH and explained to the fullest of exactly what happened and what's going on. The record is clear, and the record is clean, and the record is public. So why are you hiding this? Why are you hiding all this? Okay. And you don't really have what you say you have. I think our Secretary of State was talking last night, and he says, and they even say that the place is underwater, like, I don't know, 6 months out of the year or some crap, it floods. So why are you here? Why are you claiming some place that floods all the time? If in fact you do, but have you noticed that there's no legitimacy to the claim? And why are you claiming that? And then not being there? You need to be there. Go get yourself a boat, take your ass down there. You need to be deported to where you say you claim your territory. You need to be in your territory under the law of nations. So if you profess to follow the law of nations, follow the law of nations. If you claim that's your territory, that's where you need to be. Wouldn't you say, John?
Yes, sir. I'd say that very, very strongly.
In other words, if you're going to keep pushing this whole Dom crap, get out. Go away. Go back. Go to where you claim is your country. Guaranteed they arrest you in a heartbeat for trespass because there is no country. There's nothing there. Everything you have is strictly on paper. There's no physical evidence of it anywhere. You made it up, and you're milking people for a lot of money to be a part of a social compact where, folks, you can go back to your original states of the union. You can sign it for free. It's an instant. You can. It takes 5 minutes to fill out the form. It's free. So, folks, anything on tactical sovereignty has nothing to do with the government of the United States of America. Nothing whatsoever. Nothing on there that's written on there or put on there by anyone, especially the birth certificate crap and all this other stuff. Not even close to being condoned or actually being a part of that BS process. Okay, we have nothing to do with it. So whatever's on there, that falls on that little private Facebook page. And that's about it. And if people went over there because the T-ROH show was on that show one time, then we do apologize. We did not mean to lead people in that direction. That wasn't our intent. It was more to show people, here's your states of the union. Go to your states of the union, and start your. You can sign your social compact. You can even amend it if you'd like. Whatever. Once you get there and you start getting organized and get your assemblies, and you can get your country back. And that's what we're trying to do. Nothing more to it than that. Anything else, John, that we need to talk about?
Nothing I can think of right this minute.
Okay. He had a siren in the back, so he had to off there quick. Okay, so there you go, folks. There it is. So anybody that wants to get into this, good luck. If you're going to follow this crap, good luck. We wish you well, but need to be careful about what you're dealing with.
Yes, and that was a fire truck and an ambulance. They weren't coming after me.
Okay, here's another one. Same with the federal postal judges frauds. They've recently made a video post David Wynn Miller death, which has been gaining momentum lately. Yeah, they do a really good show. I mean, they really do. It really sounds. Sometimes when they put them out, it really sounds official. We did this, we did that, we did this, we did that. No, you didn't. You didn't do any of that they're saying they're doing. They haven't made any changes whatsoever. But it's just like when Miller claimed that he had the USPS or the UPS, United Postal Service. I'm sorry, is it UPS? He claimed that they were rewriting all of their treaties in syntax. We called them in Switzerland. We called them, and they said, we have no idea who this is. We have no idea. So, folks, that kind of claim is happening, make a phone call to that country and ask. Or UPU, I'm sorry, Universal Postal Union, not UPS, but UPU. Call them. If you want to find out if this dominion of Melchizedek is real, get a phone number and call the country where he's claiming it is. There was one guy claiming to be some kind of judge, ecclesiastical judge, and says that he was a part of these Native American Indians up in Montana. We called them. They said, we have no idea who that is. No, we don't know anything about it. And then we called 3 others. They said the same thing. And he was using them as references. But see, nobody calls the references. Then, when he found out we were calling references, he started attacking us. I can't even remember the guy's name now. This was years ago. Call people, find out what's going on. When you hear this crap, call who they're talking about. If you need to call Fiji, call Fiji. You can make these international calls on Skype now. Call them. Verify, folks, before you start writing checks. Verify what's going on. Everything that we do, we post our failures, we post our successes. Everything. We got nothing to hide. So, like I said, buyer beware. Okay, just letting you know. You heard it from here. Buyer beware. That way you can't come back and say, well, the T-ROH show was on tactical sovereignty one time, so apparently they're condoning this guy. No, we're not condoning anything the man's doing. As far as I'm concerned, it's a scam. And he just took what other con men did and brought it forward. And then claimed that he changed it, and claiming he was part of the Law of Nations, and claiming all this other stuff, when he didn't fix a thing. He didn't change a thing. He just went right along with the same scam that the founders of the Dominion of Melchizedek were doing when it started. Okay, so there it is. Thanks for listening to the 125th broadcast of the T-ROH show. We'll see you next week.